Hello and welcome to the Civic Leader Podcast. I'm your host, Sylvie Leger, and our goal with this show is to offer unbiased, fact-based information that acts as a starting point for you to get involved with and have a larger impact on your community. When it comes to civic and community leadership, most of us don't know where to start, and we definitely don't have all the facts. So that's why each episode of Civic Leader goes beyond the headlines to bring you the facts and the data point that will help you understand the role of business, government, and its citizen in the quest to improve and solve society's greatest challenge. So we hope you'll join us each and every week as we discuss the facts and important information around today's biggest policy issue to help you make you more informed, motivated, and have a really positive effect in your community and the world at large. So I'd like to get started. And today we will be discussing civic engagement. And what we'll do is we will be reading a policy circle brief entitled Civic Engagement. And the goal of the policy circle is really for women to come prepared, having read this brief, and engage in a really constructive discussion about what civic engagement means to them and how they see their future self as a civically engaged citizens in their community. So I'm thrilled because to do this today, I'm delighted to have Kim Borchers. Kim, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Sylvie. I'm excited to be here with you.
So I'm going to give a really short introduction of who you are, although it might be a bit long, because you are the ultimate civically engaged citizen in your community. I know that you are so devoted and dedicated to the well-being of all citizens in your community of Topeka, Kansas. And I'd like to give a really short bio, and I'm going to refer a bit to my notes, but you're currently the president and owner of a firm that's called Bird Dog Recruitment and Consulting. And your firm focuses primarily on placing senior level talent at the highest levels in state and federal government, which is really unique. And prior to opening your firm, you were the executive director of leadership development at a national think tank called the Foundation for Government Accountability, and you created the organization's Talent Bank Project. You've spent 20 years in grassroots movement, and I love this. It all started when you were a young mom fighting pornography at your local library. Yeah. And I'm sure you could not have imagined how this start led you to get involved politically, and your political involvement led you to become chief of staff for Governor Sam Brownback of Kansas. And then you became you also were his director of appointments for boards and commission, as well as director of personnel for the governor's transition team. So that's just one piece of what you've done politically. Today, you serve as director for Kansas Delta Dental, a board member for the Eisenhower Public Service Series, which trains women for political leadership. You're a board member for Care Parvo Latin School, a volunteer for the Topeka Civic Theater, and an advisor for Anti-Sex Trafficking Task Force, Freedom Now USA, and JAG-K. So you live in Topeka with your husband of 25 years, and you have one daughter who recently got married, another in college, and you have a son, actually, and you have a son who's in high school. You were a speaker at the Policy Circle conference in 2018. You've participated at events with the Independent Women's Forum, and you also is a mentor and a coach for Michigan's Republican Women League of Our Own, that is really focused on mentoring women who want to engage politically. So you're doing it all, Kim. I don't know how you do it, honestly.
My husband said, not one more thing. Something has to go.
You have to learn to say no,
I
right?
have to say no.
But you're a passionate person, and not only that,
Mm.
you're passionate about community engagement, and you know your strength. And one thing I didn't say is you actually hosted a radio show
Yeah.
where it was News You Can Use, right? Was the name of the radio show.
Yeah.
So
News you
how do
can.
before we start, and what we'll be doing is walking through this brief on civic engagement, but I'd love to hear from you why, why you think it matters so much. And I know your personal mission in life is also to ignite the potential in others and engage them in civic life. So just tell us a little bit about your priorities when you engage in your community.
I think any engagement has to deal with a fundamental passion for what you are working on. And I think it's about connection with people and listening to folks and hearing them out. I think that's where you're successful in this. You walk into a room and you're passionate about something. You also have to listen to other people who may or may not agree with you. I think for me personally, what I found 20 years ago is that there were not a lot of women who are engaged in politics who could actually mentor me through this process, especially as a grassroots person. So, over the past 20 years, I have made part of my commitment to mentor other women because many times you felt a little by yourself. And so, I want to make sure that other women, when they are in a very similar situation, whether it's trying to get their kids back to school over COVID-19 or they're fighting for their kids, whether it's school choice or whatever it is, to arm them appropriately, and really kind of so they don't have to reinvent the wheel, help them so they're further ahead than I was.
Right,
And
and you're really big creating a network, right, for
yes,
women to have a path to engage, and actually, and that's
correct.
why Kim has been really involved in the policy circle based on this experience, because you've been in a position to appoint people, and you fully understand, well, what is the path? It doesn't just happen. It's not because you're great at your job that you are going to get appointment and also appointed. And also, I think you need to think about, imagine yourself in serving in public service, which we don't.
No,
So
we don't.
so
And
I
you
love
mentioned,
your commitment to mentoring, and that's why I ask you to be part of reading this brief and this conversation on civic engagement. I have to admit, I'm originally from Canada. Civic engagement, I feel, is uniquely an American concept because in America, people rely so much on their community, on each other to better everybody's lives, and
Mhm.
that's what Tocqueville noticed about the American spirit, and it's rooted. There's no one else to rely on but ourselves. But it's also a very hard concept to grasp, and I've been the founder of the policy circle and involved in this, and I have to admit that I did not fully understood what it was when I started the policy circle initially. And it's through engaging in complex conversation, understanding the issues better, that all of a sudden you kind of see what it means to be a civic leader. And
Right.
that's why the whole purpose of this podcast. So let's start with the brief. Folks, the brief is called Civic Engagement. It is available on the policycircle.org website, especially if you are a circle leader, a circle member, you can access the library. And I will start with the introduction, and Kim will turn to you as to why it matters. The introduction to this is, what is civic engagement, which is what we kind of talked about. Why is it important, and how can you become more involved in your community? In this brief, we seek to provide our circle members with a deep understanding of the importance of Americans' participation in civic life, and we'll also explain how the policy circle helps build social capital, which is a crucial element of society strongly related to civic duty, and how you can just become more engaged citizen and mentor others to become engaged citizen. So there's this introduction. Every brief we start with an introduction and providing some historical context. And I think on civic engagement, it's really important. So there's this dialogue, and it says, well, doctor, what have you got? A republic or a monarchy? a republic if you can't keep it. So this is from Benjamin Franklin. Mrs. Powell of Philadelphia reportedly asked the above question to Benjamin Franklin, who had taken part in the secret deliberations of Constitutional Convention of 1787. His response underscores the responsibility that citizens have in maintaining this experiment known as the United States of America, the success of which rests upon civic engagement. The Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement finds in their report civic engagement and the changing transition to adulthood. And in the brief, there is a link to this report. But here's a quote. Today's young adults are less engaged in civic and political activities than their predecessors were 30 years ago. One reason, we argue, is that other aspects of young adulthood have also changed dramatically. As a result, it's not surprising that voting and other forms of engagement are also being delayed. The delay is nevertheless harmful because young adults lose political and civic influence and opportunities to develop skills and networks. And unfortunately, rates of civic engagement have been fading for decades. And there's a Wallet Hub study, and there's a link to it, explores evidence of a growing lack of political engagement among all Americans. So why has this once cherished American value declined the last 50 odd years? And what can we do to reinvigorate it? And why is civic engagement so important? And Kim, one thing that resonates with me is this idea of network in civic engagement. And I don't know if it does, it certainly does, I know for you as well, because you have to be part of a network as a human being, but also to advance your goals and advance your career. Maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Absolutely. No one solves a problem in a community as one person. It is a group of people. And so as you can rally individuals who have different skill sets that they can bring to the table, it moves the ball down the field. And so I think any great leader recognizes they don't know everything. So it's really important that they surround themselves with other people who might be smarter and better in other areas than they are. And for many leaders, they're just really good leaders. They know how to bring together a group of talented people, get the vision laid out and cast, and then they're all working in the same direction. So anything that I ever worked on in politics or in my community was never done solo.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And
It's
we
a team.
forget that. And I think as much as women value relationships for their lives, support for family lives, sometimes, and this is all the studies show, is that the breadth of the network that women have is one of the reasons why there is a leadership gap, politically, but also in enterprise. So, Kim, can I invite you to read the case study in the brief?
Absolutely. Running for local office is one of the best ways to make a difference in a community, but most people don't know where to even begin. In Austin, it's not so difficult with the Center for Austin's Futures AT Accelerator program. The nonprofit organization seeks to identify, educate, and support local civic leaders and the general public regarding public policy and service. And it's a 3-month program specifically trains and educates potential candidates for local offices such as city council or local boards and commissions. Mentors in the program are current or former elected officials and community leaders who teach participants classes on various issues pertaining to the community's land use and economic development, to social equity and homelessness. What makes the AT Accelerator program stand out is its tech accelerator model, like Shark Tank, but applied to local politics. Participants are immersed in the world of government operations and issues facing their community, and end their experience with a pitch that enables each participant to put forward a policy platform that they would advocate in a hypothetical race. Regardless of the route participants take after they complete their training, the program seeks to give citizens the tools they need to handle the big issues that growing cities face.
So yeah, it's I participated in one of their session in Austin, and what's interesting is they invite leaders of each of the agencies, the departments in the city. So like when I was there, I was the finance director who came and presented the finances of Austin. So they do that for each of the sectors of Austin, so the people that are selected to be part of this program become aware of, get an overview of what's going on, what are the issues in Austin, and use that information to develop a platform. And then they give a pitch, and then they invite about 300 people or something to kind of vote, to vote them in or vote them out. So really a Shark Tank kind of model. Actually they do it. So it's a unique model to educate people about how city government functions, which a lot of times you just don't know.
Right. Absolutely. And I think our recent experience makes that the case. Most people don't really understand how their local government works. We think national because we see those folks on TV or maybe the state senator. But if you ask most people who's my county commissioner or my city council, they wouldn't even be able to tell you. And yet they're the closest to them.
Right. And we pay taxes to all of these different agencies, the park district, the library, the village, depending. But you need to look closely at your tax bill and how the money is being spent. So we have a paragraph here about why it matters. Democracy, in our case, a federal republic, depends on citizens' participation. When citizens are engaged, they can exchange ideas, invest in finding solutions, and employ civilized discourse to address the issues facing their communities. People have the freedom to participate in and influence government policy, acting as a check on government. The media are also present and independent of government influence and provide equal access to information. All of this unites people under a shared purpose, which builds trust, empathy, and human connections and support bases. So there's a link here to a TED talk about civic engagement and an expert talking about making it sexy again. So we invite you to look at that, watch that movie. The briefs are multimedia, and it's Eric Liu, Why Ordinary People Need to Understand Power. So, so Kim, let's put it in context, and maybe you could take on that section on what is civic engagement, and you and I can discuss that a little bit. So I'll turn it over to you.
How engaged are you in your community? Perhaps you serve on the school board or the PTA, or you're a member of a local charity. Perhaps you read your local paper or quarterly newsletters from your municipality and vote at election time, or perhaps not. Between work, family, and other commitments, it can be hard to find time to pay attention and get involved, but civic engagement is an essential part of exercising your voice in our society. But what does civic engagement mean? Thomas Ehrlich, author of Civic Responsibility in Higher Education, offers the following definition. Civic engagement means working to make a difference in the civic life of our communities and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make that difference. It means promoting the quality of life in a community through political and non-political processes. A morally and civilly responsible individual recognizes himself or herself as a member of a larger social fabric and therefore considers social problems to be at least partly his or her own. And such an individual is willing to see the moral and civic dimensions of issues, to make and justify informed moral and civic judgments, and to take action when appropriate. And taking action can include some of the key focal points of civic engagement.